This is What Do You Bring to the Table, a series made by youth for youth that aims to explore the many, many career paths available within our Canadian food systems. By interviewing industry leaders across the country, we get a first-hand look at the various career opportunities available to the next generation, with a particular focus on equity and sustainability. We want to thank the Gay Lea Foundation and the Ontario Trillium Foundation for their generosity in supporting this project. Please visit our website www.seeds.ca/schoolfoodgardens and sign up for our free monthly e-newsletter to stay involved. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Links to those are on our website. If you like what we are doing, please drop a like, review, or comment. Or if you have the means to, contribute with a monetary donation through our website. Thanks for listening. This is episode 8, Kinnera and Ibrahim.
Hello, thank you for joining us for this interview. Would you like to introduce yourself first?
So my name is Ibrahim Mohammed. I'm a PhD student at the University of Guelph. My research is looking into the structure of soil organic matter. My interest is to see how soil organic matter structure changes at the molecular level. And why this is important is because the molecular chemistry of soil organic matter is what influences its function for crop growth. So functions such as nutrient holding capacity, water holding capacity, or in soil structure. These are processes or these are features of the soils or properties of the soil that are important for crop production, but they're all regulated by soil organic matter. And this molecular structure of soil organic matter, it's basically what influences the efficacy of a particular soil to be able to perform this function. But because it changes as a result of different management practices, and we have varied amount of management practices, so my research is looking at various practices and how that influences the structure. So yeah, that's for what I do for research. And on the side, I kind of do a part-time job with the RL Food Institute at the University of Guelph, where I sit on a committee or a subcommittee working on decarbonizing the food system.
What has motivated you to pursue environmental sciences?
Yeah, well, I think my interest in environmental sciences go back to my early undergraduate studies when I took a course in soil science, and I learned about the importance of soil organic matter and the challenges of increasing soil organic matter content. I still recall a particular course I took in my third year, and the instructor posed a challenge. I was like, if we can devise a method to increase soil organic matter content in tropical soil up to like 3%, then we can win the Nobel Prize. I said, oh, that's cool. And at that time, it was very much like a joke, but I thought that was just interesting. And that basically was my first contact point or insight into how dynamic environmental science is. And I think from that very incident, I've expanded my knowledge. I've learned new things. I've found more interesting things within the environmental field. And I also learned how crucial the soil as an environmental matrix is important to the functioning of the ecosystem. So all these experiences put together is what have basically informed my decision to continue up to this point where I'm doing a PhD in environmental science.
What do you hope to achieve in the future with your research?
Well, the environmental science field is quite broad, and there are many things to do. I think the first thing as a researcher, which I would want to achieve is to be able to make significant contribution to the field. Especially within the context of climate change, which is the major challenge facing the environment and also threatening food security. So there's a lot of research on soil organic matter due to its importance in agricultural sustainability. So my hope with my research and subsequent research, which I will do as a researcher, is to be able to find important information which will inform decisions at the farm level. And that's because we really don't know what soil organic matter structure looks like. It's very complex. And if I can contribute to elucidating the structure of soil organic matter so that it can inform decisions at the farm level and help manage our soils better, I think that will be a very, very important contribution and a very important achievement on my side. Yeah.
Is there any particular reason that the University of Guelph was your choice to pursue your graduate studies?
There isn't a particular reason, and I think the way graduate studies run, they're kind of different from undergrad, whereby things are in the undergrad level, like things are very much defined, but the graduate level, it's more about you searching for a project that suits your interest. So there isn't a particular reason why I chose Guelph. I think the reason, sorry, no, there's a particular reason why I chose Guelph, but that's because the project itself meets my requirement. It's basically very much in line with what I want to do. So that's the major reason. But it could have been elsewhere if I found a project that's also like this, but probably not in Guelph. I would have sort of gone elsewhere, and that's because in graduate studies, very much of you looking for a research project that meets your requirement or is in line with your interest. I think that's the first criteria, then something else comes can follow. So I chose Guelph simply because there was a project that was aligned with that's aligned with my interest.
How's your experience been there so far?
Yeah, it's been great because I haven't been to Canada before enrolling in a PhD. It happened that when I started my program, that was about the same time when COVID hit. So it's not been the smooth of an experience. It's been a mix of many things. Initially, it was very much me to the lab, to the office, things like that. And of course, eventually campus opened and then there was more interaction. So from the research part, I think my experience has been great. I've been able to make a lot of progress in my research. I've been able to present my research in conferences and some other places. So there's also in terms of the campus life itself and the students being able to interact with other students when campus open. So yeah, it's been a mix of so many different types of experiences, where I think by and large, it's been great so far.
I've heard that you have been researching in decarbonizing food systems. Could you please explain what is decarbonizing food systems and maybe what it will accomplish?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And because decarbonizing the food system is basically reducing the carbon footprint of food production. And when we talk about carbon footprints, we're not only interested in carbon, we're interested in greenhouse gases that cause global warming. And the major ones are carbon dioxide, for sure. There's nitrous oxide, and then there's methane. So livestock production releases methane. Likewise, manure management releases nitrous oxide. And of course, crop production releases CO2 due from management of residue, or when residues are burnt on the field or not composted, things like that, because when they degrade, then they release CO2. And all these gases basically contribute to greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which leads to global warming. And different sectors of the economy have their own contribution of greenhouse gases. And when you pull all the gases together, then the global warming problem becomes a very, very serious issue. So as a way of reducing the impact of greenhouse gases or global warming, so all countries of the world pledge to cut down carbon emission. And within the agricultural sector, this may entails cutting down emissions from different production, either it's livestock or it's crop production. And the strategies involved in cutting down those emissions, basically what we imply when we say decarbonization. So decarbonization is just an effort to cut down all carbon emission from agricultural production. But carbon is an umbrella term, which includes carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane, which are the major greenhouse gases contributed by agricultural production.
What kind of challenges do you think will pose in decarbonizing food systems?
Well, that's an interesting one, and because the challenge is they're kind of a complex one. They're those kind of challenges that have been described as wicked, and that's because they basically involve so many things. So there's first of all the challenge of technology, because we don't have enough technology to solve all the problem. So there's that challenge, and there's also the challenge of making change happen based on the technologies which we have, and that requires voluntary changes to be made at the different production points. So when you look at those, what's it called? When you look at the challenges, either from the technology part or from the uptake of current technology and how they interact, then that complicates the whole problem. So I'll give you an example. Let's say in reducing methane from livestock production, there's been a lot of research on diets, changing the diet of the livestock to reduce how much of methane they produce. But of course, we don't know exactly if that works. So it's worked in some area, in other places they haven't worked. There's been the call to breed livestock that can reduce methane production, but there's also a section of the consumer that is not comfortable with that extent of genetic mutation, which has to be done in animals. So you find those challenges interacting and making it complex to be able to make change. And when it comes to manure management, for example, on farms, there's need to have some certain kind of instrument or equipment that can manage manure better, but that requires cash injection to be able to acquire those specialized facilities which can manage manure better. And if the farmer has to pay for those equipment or to install those facilities for manure management, it means that's going to increase the cost of food production, which will increase the prices of food. So, and when you look at it also from the, let's say, an area of cultivation of soil, there are also challenges on the field because different environments have different challenges, and there's certain technologies that will work in certain on certain farmlands, and they won't work in other farmland due to due to specific properties which you find in different environment. So those challenges, they're kind of complicated, and if you are trying to propose a decarbonization solution, for example, then the first thing you want to do is try to understand that context of where a solution needs to be applied. And if you're going context by context, that means the solution is going to take place at a very, very slow pace. And so the challenges are quite a lot. There's a challenge of technology, there's a challenge of adoption, and then when this interact, then it complicates even the methodology of bringing about any change which is intended. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, so there are a multitude of risk factors in accomplishing this.
Yeah. Well, if you can also call them that. You can also call them risk factors. Yeah. So there's a risk factor for sure, because I wouldn't want to say risk. It's risk factor, because risk factor means you have to take an action, and the result might be uncertain. So that's not the case per se. It's more of uncertainty, I would say, in what you will get. Yeah. Maybe that qualifies as risk too, but I wouldn't want to phrase it as risk, because there are so many other things that will qualify as risk. So I would say it's more of uncertainty on one side. There's also lack of capacity on another side, and the capacity is either in terms of technology, which will solve the problem, or in terms of the capacity of the farmer to be able to adopt whatever has been proposed.
So say in the next 10 years, how much would how much further would be accomplished?
Yeah, so there's a goal to attain net zero by 2050. And because the whole goal of decarbonization is to be able to reach a point of net zero. And what we mean by net zero is basically a point whereby the emission from agricultural production is being offset by a particular action of decarbonization. So the goal is to be able to reach net zero. And by 2035, the goal is to be able to cut down emission by 30%. So that's the goal which the federal government has set. But we're not making so much progress now. And that's because there are certain actions which the farmer needs to take, or there are certain changes the farmer, for example, at the farm level, needs to make, and they don't have like the capacity to be able to make those changes because they require incentives. So that's one. Secondly, when we look at the agricultural system, because now I'm talking about agricultural system from the production level, but there's also the agricultural system at the processing level. So at the processing level, it's like when you take the raw materials now from the farm, you take it to a processing plant where the product is being processed into like a final good, which you get maybe in as a cereal or something else. There's also that section of the food system, and that also involves a lot of players. And the players include those that are basically into transportation. There are those that are just transportation and distribution. So there's also the need to decarbonize at all those sections. So when you look at the way the food system is growing, more participants are getting into the food system and they're contributing to greenhouse gases. And without tracking the activity or those and quantifying how much emission is being released by those different parties, then we really cannot have a number, or we cannot have a number of how much is being reduced, and we cannot have an actual target of how much to cut down. So the agricultural, the food system is basically becoming more complex because you have more people coming in. So at the farm level, you might be able to reduce one or two, but outside the farm level, that's where it becomes more difficult, and it requires tracking all the emission and also having in place solutions to be able to reduce.
That's it for part 1. Tune in to part 2 of Kinnera's interview with Ibrahim on our website, YouTube, or Spotify channel. See you soon!